call you? Randy?
Papa.
Papa? Bill's the oldest one. I don't know where it came from, but we were down there tonight. They were stationed in North Carolina. We were down there for my granddaughter's birth, helping them out because my son was getting ready to go to Afghanistan. And all of a sudden, he just started calling him Beeper.
Beep.
And I said, you like beeping the horn? I'm a little school like saying, were you beeping the horn? Where did you get that from?
That's great. Hopefully it sticks.
Oh, it's stuck. He's
Yeah.
15 now.
Ah,
All the other kids gone.
It's the glare right on that. Book. I
it's
can't
6.
see
It's 6.
Yeah.
That's good. Hello. Welcome to the workshop for the Board of Selectmen. We'll be talking about the Y contract.
Well, so I set this up to go over goals for your next fiscal year. So we're getting into budget workshops. We don't need to go through the Y contract line by line, but it does factor into what are we going to budget for next year. So that will be part of the discussion. Jeanette gave you a list of the budget requests that we've gotten from other departments so far.
Good.
And, and I have a goal of my own that I wanted to present to you guys too. So if you want, we can start off with that or.
Can I start off with something,
Sure.
please? First of all, I like the changes to the contract, but I'd like a couple of clarifications on the numbers, if I may. First of all, can you explain what Camp Marlin is for me? What is that? Is that what the Y does
Yeah.
for? That's the whole camp name?
Well, what do you want to start off with, Vicki?
If he's got questions, I don't.
Okay.
have
Yes,
a
that's what
problem with
Camp
it.
Marlin is. It's the WISE program is
Okay.
what they call it.
So if I read this right, their revenue in 2024 was 258,707. So their expense was 272,216. So they lost $13,500. Is that?
That's what they're
Yeah.
telling us.
Okay.
yes.
That's what he said.
So they didn't bring any state financials, anything sent to you, nothing like that was requested. So then there's the management fees. So we pay, and I'm sorry, but I'm just wrapping my head around this. So the management fees, we pay them as $41,000. Okay. Basically their expenses was 46,000. So they lost $5,692. Am I reading it correct? Okay. Returned gate revenue. Does that mean they gave us a check for $34,735?
Yep.
Several checks that added up. to that.
Okay. So we're still under $7,000 in the so-called red. So to be net zero, we need an additional $7,000. Is that true?
That's the way it looks like. I ran numbers about a year or 2 years ago to figure out if you take a person at the gate or even 2 people at the gate, write it all up, and it came roughly to 40. It was like 38, and then we said we're throwing in a couple thousand for management. So you're correct with that.
Okay. I was under the impression that we lose much more than that. So right now it's costing the taxpayer $7,000-ish for this past year.
No, it's costing them $41,000 because that's how much you pay them.
But we received 34,000 back.
Correct.
So the net
Well,
is
you're
seven-ish.
There's electricity, there's mowing, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into the park.
So in order to get a full number, you have to include the mowing because they use
Yeah.
the fields. You'd have to include porta potties that we pay for. You'd have to include dumpsters that we pay for.
Okay.
You'd have to include
Plowing.
the trash being picked up at the field. They're not the only ones that use the
Yep.
field. So we have to divvy that out based on time to get a true number of what it's costing the taxpayers.
Okay.
So 7,000 short and sweet these are the gate receipts and this is what we're paying for the contract. But then there's a lot of other factors that we pay for, phone line, those kind of things.
So did we receive any kind of plan from the Y to get us to net zero this year?
No, it was never agreed upon that they would come up with that plan.
Okay.
What was agreed upon was this contract here, which is that they would just help us.
Okay, I'm all set.
Satisfied? Please.
Thank you. So I guess I was thinking in terms of like Jeanette wrote down the different budget requests, and then I have a budget request for myself. And part of it has to do with park management and buildings and grounds, because over at least the last year and a half or more, that's like one of the number one things I get calls about. If it's, raking up leaves somewhere, or there's an issue at one of the parks, or there's a door broken at the salt shed. We don't have anybody that oversees our facilities to really keep an eye on it and keep track of like what we need to kind of put our attention to. So I would recommend we go that route to get a full-time person in place who may be able to help with facilities maintenance and recreational services to a point. And the reason why I put recreational services in there was that I would like them to like facilitate Pines rentals, because the committee had talked about splitting that up. And I feel like the Y helped us with the Pine rentals, but I don't know if we're really tapping into what we could tap into. And they could manage things like field use requests. They can manage volleyball leagues and whatnot. And then on top of that, they would kind of oversee our buildings and grounds.
So there was an instance, I'm just gonna, where one of the sinks wasn't working, and we didn't know that till the end of the season. This person would know that,
Right.
would be out there. We've had issues where we need to rake the leaves on the beach. We've had issues where we need to clean up the sticks that have fallen. There were 2 out here this morning. We just don't have anybody to do that. Cut back the sumac here. There's just nobody to do that. The door at the salt shed, I'm the one that went up to go check on it and see how things were doing. And we had Paul up there helping, trying to figure out how to get the salt inside before it rained.
We've had issues with like our septic and stuff like that we've had to look into, so.
The outhouse at Kittybutt Pond just had a sheet of plywood put over it, and that's where they set the porta potty. Well, when we moved the porta potty, of course, it's all rusted out now, it's all gone, and I'm looking at this gaping hole. So I'm the one that facilitated getting it sucked out and getting it filled. So those kind of things we're in desperate need of that.
Yeah. And if she's facilitating, it's because I've delegated her to, because it was something I couldn't get to.
I wonder though what we would do, like you're talking about one position for the park,
Well,
basically, but who would you imagine would be the department head over this person?
I would be their supervisor.
You would be
So
the
I would
supervisor, so
call it like a director of facilities and recreational services, and they would answer to the town manager.
do you really think that there would be enough things that to
Based
be
on-
full-time?
The emails and phone calls I get, yes, definitely.
Okay.
And I was looking into, because I was curious about like fee schedules and things that we're not really monitoring right now. So I took our field use fee schedule. So I know we talked about like a flat fee per organization, but I looked at what other towns do, and some of them charge an hourly rate, like $15 an hour to use the field. So I do keep a schedule of the field use, because I have to report to the mower to let him know this is when it's being used, so he's not interrupting their field use. So I give him a calendar.
Yep.
And if we did something like a flat, some places charge $400 per league to use it for, a month or two. Some places do hourly, some places do per game. So I did an hourly because I have a calendar here that tells me how many hours we rented out the field. And it comes to like, if we did $15 an hour, it would be $13,500 in revenue. Because that's how much the field is being used.
This person's gonna need tools and a place to keep them.
Yep.
And other things.
Some things can be outsourced. So we're outsourcing right now. Every time we need to fix a bench.
No, you're right,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
No, I totally get it. I
think
totally get it.
long range and
See what it's gonna
and
look
cover
like.
all the,
Yeah.
at least what would I need if I was gonna do X, Y, Z to,
Well, we have the mansion and stuff there in terms of storage and so that was what I'd come up with. Jeanette, and you can keep talking thoughts on it if you want.
did you, check around when you had hourly prices on field use and stuff?
Mhm.
What that kind of a position, what the going rate is? on
Yep.
that?
I looked around like what MMA does for salary studies, and so I'd come up with like a 68,000-ish. But then that you have to factor in FICA, healthcare, dental. We would want to reimburse them for mileage, so I don't know what the mileage reimbursement would be. I kind of put in 5,200, just thinking if they're going in between different parks and facilities. They would need, email, phone. So the initial salaries position, it would be 104,000-ish.
Is there a way to defer that cost between both sides of the park?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we update our fee schedules, we've talked about doing different leagues, like horseshoe leagues, cornhole, volleyball. I mean, there's stuff over there that's not really being utilized. And if that person could oversee it, we get, the volleyball court, for instance, really just needs very light sprucing up. And if we could do leagues. So again, I looked into leagues for volleyball, and a lot of them do it like per hour. So it could be like $25, $35 per hour. Some of it's per league, per game. So I did an hourly rate, figuring 2 teams at $20 per hour for usually 2 hours is a game, an hour and a half to 2 hours. So that's $80 for 2 teams to play. If you did that once a day, every day, that's $560 a week.
The cost was $15 an hour, you said you proposed?
Well, I'm throwing out,
Right.
I'm kind of starting low.
Yep.
And I'm just looking at,
What was other, did you get any other comparables?
it depends how you want to do it. If you want to do per league, I mean, some places do $450 per league. So each team, so that's like, $900. But then they're set to do every Thursday for like the next 2 months. So there's different routes you can look at it. Some do per game. But we don't have anyone like to oversee scheduling stuff. Like who's going to manage? I would love to be able to get into those resources to help filter it back into the town. But I need someone who's keeping track of the schedule, who's out there networking, who's, trying to get some
I had-
attention. And stuff.
I had a similar idea
Mhm.
as you, although my idea was to have 2 part-time people, because sometimes projects, 2 people, it takes 2 people to get it accomplished.
Mhm.
But,
I
same
mean,
idea.
Management wise, it's a lot harder to manage 2 part-time positions than 1 full-time.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
But I was kind of thinking along the same lines, and I don't want to call it a Department of Public Works, although it kind of fits that bill.
Well, I just threw out a name of like Director of Facilities and Recreational Services because it kind of encompasses both factors.
Bless you.
It was kind of sudden.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
just a quick question with respect to the hourly field rental. Would that be paid by the youth soccer and youth softball leagues
I'm
that are
just, they're
currently using?
random numbers, so I just went out there and looked at what other towns are doing. So I'm not proposing like that's what you do, but that is a suggestion of how you guys can get some revenue back in there.
But that's who would be paying it.
Whoever wants to use it,
Whoever uses the field.
whoever wants to use it.
Mhm.
It's not, you know, we don't reserve it just for special groups. It's really, it's there for whoever wants to use it. A lot of towns do a first come, first served basis. When I checked out their website, they have a field use form. You know, some of them ask for 50% down payment. You know, there's just a lot of different ways you can look at it.
I personally like the idea of having somebody oversee that. I just would think that the first year we have to, or we should get to net zero of what, not so much for the payroll of the person, because I think that'd be a tall order, but at least what we put in as taxpayers to the field and to the water side.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take marketing, networking, and I think, you know, when the Y rents out the Pines, they call Waterboro Parks and Recs and Arundel Parks and Recs. That's who they call.
Mhm.
But I think that'd be a beautiful spot for a family reunion or a class reunion or an employee appreciation day. So like, and the Y doesn't, you know, we've had those workshops with them and they're like, well, we don't, you know, they don't have the resources to go and market it for us, but they do try to call other parks and recs. And I think, and now I'm not saying this person runs the entire park, because maybe the Y, if you contract with the Y, maybe they handle the booth side of things. And then this person handles like the field and the pines.
Scheduling pickup of the garbage.
Yeah, we've had
Things
that.
like that. We've had the garbage overflow there before. We didn't know. So that person would be around, walking around these parks, seeing what's going on,
And Kennybunk
seeing what
Pond's
needs to
another
be
one.
taken care of.
Could you work on a job description?
Not yet. Not yet. Because I mean, if you guys are just like, no, then I don't want to put my energy into that. But
I'm not opposed. I mean, it's right now, it's an idea stage.
I'm not opposed.
I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just curious. I mean, because, you know, it sounds good.
Mhm.
But is there enough hours in the day is there enough for someone
I-
to do for?
considering what Jeanette and I have picked up on, I mean, we gave you a few examples. I do feel like there's enough hours in the day. I answer mostly calls to, you know, Kennybunk Pond. We just revitalized Kennybunk Pond and it looks beautiful over there. But now, you know, someone pushed a rock into the thing and somebody ran over a tree and, you know, there was poop in the water this year, even though there wasn't really poop in the water, but everyone was like, oh my God, the water's brown. And, you know, it takes a lot of time and effort to run down there, tape it off, go look at it, run the water tests, you know.
So that's the kind of, all those things you would be turning
Yeah,
over to this
You know,
individual.
the gate timer's the gate timer's been wonky, so we've been playing around with that. And it's, you know, it's every time I get multiple emails and phone calls about Kennybunk Pond being one, Bunganut Park's another one, and a couple about Chadbourne Field.
So it's mostly is
Mostly
recreational places.
it's park management. It's mostly park management. But then, like to Jeanette's point, nobody has their eyes on like this town hall or the salt shed or like I'm not, you know, we'll get down to it, but I'll talk about like the generator, for example. You know, we don't have a generator that supports the building when it's out of power. But I don't have anyone who would, like, nobody's monitoring. We have light switch, you know, these outdoor outlets don't work. We only found that out because we were doing an election and GMFR plugged in their lights and come to find out none of the outlets outside work. So we don't know these things until we come across it because I don't have somebody who's checking,
Okay.
you know, and
Yeah.
I mean, and it's, we don't know what's wrong with the town hall office. like you said, there's a floors peeling up in the bathroom. It's just, those are things that, you know, the tax collector or myself or the treasurer, we're not monitoring that stuff.
Mhm.
We only find out, you know, when the light switches aren't working or the AC is not working in the comm room when a problem arises. And then we go, oh, now we know. But I would love to be able to get ahead of those things, not wait till something goes wrong,
Right?
but have someone who's either keeping an inventory or just doing routine maintenance checks. Like we talked about the Y doing some routine checks. We need to do that for your town hall, for your transfer station, your salt shed, all of your facilities. You need to do routine checks because something's going to happen, and then we'll go, oh no, we didn't see it coming.
I think that kind of feels like where we've been in the past,
Yeah.
is, oh no, oh no,
Well,
oh no, and we're constantly chomping on fires.
I know, sorry.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
I've noticed some maintenance issues with the town hall since I've been back on the board, and I kind of didn't really push anything or talk about, because we were talking about expansion, so,
Yeah.
and doing the land swap and all that, so now that's gonna happen. That, those things, some of it's flooring, some of it's, you know, just the painting, there's holes in the walls, your office could really use some paint, you know, things like that. But I thought with the, you know, gonna possibly do a renovation.
Yeah.
And expansion, that would be the time to address those things, but,
But you want to maintain it going
definitely,
forward.
oh, and this person that we haven't hired yet or created an exact position for yet, something like the outdoor plugs,
Mhm.
things like that, wouldn't you call an electrician as opposed
We
to
didn't know
just
they
having
weren't
somebody?
working.
No, I understand,
You
but would you have somebody look at that?
Yeah.
That wasn't an electrician, or would you call an electrician?
Oh yeah.
You'd end up calling an electrician, but instead of finding out after the fact, you've got a list before
You
the
have someone
fact.
who's
Yeah.
taking inventory, basically.
Yeah.
They won't be able to complete every job. They will have to outsource. I mean, I want a professional electrician to do that. They will have to outsource things, but they're keeping inventory and they're monitoring that stuff because I feel like we've been doing catch up. I feel like we're kind of behind.
Yeah.
There's, you know, these dead widowmaker trees in the park that no one's monitoring. Just nobody's keeping inventory of the stuff that kind of has to be repaired and kept up on.
The sumac started growing around this building. You know, we have a lawn person, but it was Brad who took his free time and cut it all down at one point. It's starting to encroach again.
It always, yeah.
Yeah,
does.
so, you know, those kind of things that have happened that we're like, okay, maybe we could get some help with this. It's just, she's constantly answering phone calls about that stuff. And I've jumped up and gone to do it when she's not here or she's on her way or something like that, so.
So that you would consider your number one priority
That's
for
what,
yourself?
in
I mean,
terms of
as
my
town,
budget goals, yeah.
as town manager, that we never had before now.
Mhm.
So that makes a difference to me, what you think now that you've had your eyes on things
And I know,
for this
you
amount
know,
of time.
price tags can have that sticker shock, right? You know, which is why I was like, we're just started kind of tapping into Bunganut a little bit. And I think that can be grown upon. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have them like running festivals and stuff like that, like year one, but I do feel like there's some simple bite-sized pieces like we can kind of chomp in at that helps alleviate that cost factor. And then I would like to see it grow.
Well, I think it makes
Some-
sense to do that as the park is gonna change and grow as well.
Yeah.
We want that to be a destination and
And it doesn't have to mean, and this doesn't have anything to do with the YMCA. I mean,
Right.
you guys could contract with them whatever you want. I've recommended the Pines because we talked about, we're working on cleaning up the Pines with the forester, and that maybe we can start trying to rent that out a little bit more than we normally do.
it's a good idea.
So
Do you have an idea of what a salary would be
for that person? So it would be with salaries and benefits. And we always say, you know, you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So we go the highest amount on benefits because we don't know. That would be 97,488. Well, roughly, give or take. It kind of, you know, you still have to like post it, interview for the job. There's some negotiating there. So I think I put down 68,000 would be where I'd start with a baseline salary. But if someone came in, they have no experience, but they have the, you know, aptitude, passion to get in there, I may start them lower, you know, and kind of work with them, like show us what you got and we'll kind of work with you. But I would start as terms of budgeting, I would plan to budget somewhere around 97 so you can cover your benefits and your salaries. And then I did include in there mileage, phone, email, remote managed services for stuff. So the total came to like 104 to get them, because we'll have to pay for monthly services for an email, remote managed services for IT stuff. Mileage, I have no idea what that would be.
Good.
Retention and recruitment discussion.
Either that, or I wanted to kind of remind the board too that there's other goals you guys are working on, such as like forestry and logging efforts, franchise agreement, you know, the land study and land sales and park services and stuff. So just kind of, I think when we start reviewing budgets, and based off of the list of some of the requests we got, we always see it increase every year. A lot of times it's inflationary. And so I just think you're going to see increases every year. So I'd like to also focus on some of the goals we're working on, not just increasing the budget, but we're working, you know, the forestry,
Right.
you know, land study, franchise, and all that stuff can help.
Well, I'd like to do that as well as a board to maybe like come up with 3 major priorities that we want to concentrate on, because I feel like we bounce. We're talking about this and we're talking about that, we're talking about that, we come back to this, but then that happens. So I don't know, I'd rather have 3 goals to focus on. And number 1, I think that the town hall needs to be addressed, because if we are growing as a town, which we are, I mean, we have almost 1,000 calls from the Goodwin's Mills Fire Department, which we've never had
Mhm.
before. If we're gonna have an increase in employees, we're gonna need to increase the space here.
So the town hall expansion, we're still working with the architect engineer. And I'm waiting on Brad he has to do the deeds and everything. And I'd like to get that like in the registry of deeds before we really get into the thick of things. I just want to make sure the parties involved in a land swap, like it's a done deal, we're good to go.
Right.
And then we'll kind of I'll revisit with the architect engineer. But, you know, I have talked to them about doing like rural development. They have grants and loan combinations that we can look into. But you do need to have the architectural plans first before you submit for that, which we haven't done yet. So,
But
yeah, I do want to
at
finish
least the
that.
first step we've taken is to ask the people if we can swap the land, and that was
Yeah.
approved, so we can continue.
Yeah, and then the next step is finalizing those plans. It might not be, depending on when we can finalize those plans. I don't know when, you know, again, I'm sort of in limbo to really give a timeline as like, when do we move to the next step? I'm not sure. So we might land in the next fiscal year, you know, but definitely it's on the radar.
I'd also like to work on the land sales that we had talked about,
Mhm.
the first thing. Well, I don't know if this particular board, we talked in the past with other members on it, we talked about selling off the small pieces that weren't not non-conforming, but little pieces that really nobody could use other than maybe in a butter or
Lost.
something that we would sell those off, but we haven't done anything yet, and I feel like that's squandering. You guys, you did a bunch of work on that.
That work's still
McDonald.
continuing.
Peggy McDonald did that
Yeah.
book for us. I mean, that impressed me. That was thorough.
Yeah.
And I was really, I like that.
Things are still moving forward. It's just at a slower pace until the logger starts logging these to see what we have and what we can utilize each lot for, whether it be the future or whether we deem it to just sell it. And some of these lots that you're referring to still need to be looked at the potential in order to get the greatest value back for the town. And that's the direction that we've been moving into.
Another thing to keep in mind also is that, one day, not tomorrow, not next week, but someday, we're gonna probably need to, have a bigger fire department as the towns grow.
Mhm.
And we had discussed some of that at our meeting, so I don't know, I don't have a piece in mind or an idea for that, but I also thought of that maybe if that happened and they were to move out of that building, that would be a place to start, maybe Department of Highway Department type thing,
Public Works.
and the, and expound on just the beginning of this one person could end up being a whole department
Yeah.
in time. I know that it's all shocking financially to do it all at once
Yeah.
and to do these things, but our town is growing, we can't deny it.
Right.
Yeah.
Matt did suggest to us, because we're, like Dave said, the land study thing we're still doing. So he did mark out potential satellite stations and areas that he would be interested in. He marked out where to put some potential dry hydrants and fire ponds. We had the forester help us identify some fire ponds
Oh,
areas.
nice.
Just to help out. So yeah, that was part of the land study, was getting that input. I know we wanted the logging efforts, so like we're kind of doing it in chunks. And then I think the plan was to do like another chunk of lots to see what the potential is there.
Has there been any thought to industrial, like an industrial park type use?
There's an awful lot of land out there that we're talking about changing the land use. That's years down the road.
Just curious.
Yeah.
The comp plan committee was, I think, working on some more surveys to put out there. And some of it, I know they've put some questions in there, and they're just questions, do you want to see what's most important to you? Like, do you want law enforcement? Do you want more fire department services? Do you want more schools? Do you want more rural area? So they're working on that survey
good.
that might help
Nice.
give some feedback to that.
Keep an eye out for that.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just a quick one. There was an article back in late September in the Reporter about Hollis
Mhm.
and its town hall project. And it was mentioning that there was a USDA grant that they received. They got some TIF financing through the state as well. And it was a process of, I think, like 6 years, but they've broken ground and they're in the process of carrying that out. So it'd be worthwhile, I think, maybe contacting folks over there. I know Ms. Hoffman is on the select board over there, and also she's on the MMA Legislative Council. Maybe asking them as to what the process was, and maybe we could follow something similar.
So our architect is also doing Hollis.
Hmm.
So he's working with them on that.
Very good.
That's why I asked him if he's familiar with that, because that's the rural development one that I mentioned is the one that they're doing. And
Mhm.
it's like a grant, and you can do a loan grant combo, or you can just apply for the grant. There's requirements to meet for the matching, so they'll do up to 75%, but it depends on what bracket you fall under. And you kind of can't move forward with anything until you have your architectural
Right.
plans ready to go.
Mhm.
But yeah, again, I'm sort of in limbo because I don't want to put time and resources into something until I know that we have this recorded in the registry of deeds. Everyone's good to go forward. And I'm right now waiting on Brad for that. So yeah, that is something I've been working on.
So getting back to this here, the position that you're referring to,
Mhm.
do you foresee them managing the land and buildings of Buggernut itself? And therefore taking that obligation away from the YMCA, and therefore paying, or hopefully not paying anything to the YMCA and utilizing that money to,
In
Offset.
the long term, I mean, I'd like to see it grow so that eventually there is someday we will have a Department of Public Works and maybe a Department of Parks and Recs, and they're two separate departments. Right now, that would just be like the cost factor, I think, would just freak everybody out because that would be so much money. So I'm trying to, scale it down a bit. In the first year, no, probably not. But after that, I don't know. I'd like to start somewhere, and then my plan is to like help that grow. However, whatever that looks like. So I think first year would be a little bumpy, trying to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and then getting into a groove. Just like anything, I mean, we had to do the same thing with town manager. It was just sort of like figure out
Yeah.
how we're gonna groove this and then start rolling with it.
Yeah, I'm not keen on, not renewing this. Were you speaking of not renewing the contract right now, or?
I don't think the town should be paying anything. I think it should be a net zero. I actually think the town should be getting paid. It's an asset that the town has. I'm not, there's no way to verify these numbers. But if it seems to me, $350,000 that's going, and where it still costs us, $10,000-$15,000. It's just, it doesn't add up to me. And personally, and I'm only one of five, but if it's not a net zero or even a slight positive, I'm out.
I wouldn't be opposed to working towards that.
Yeah, that, I don't have that.
At the bottom.
What don't you have?
I don't have the one with the financials on it, but I have two
Yeah.
park management.
Here, you want this?
See, I don't have that.
Oh, well, maybe you have two of those.
No, I don't. I just have one, but
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
I knew I was missing something. I'm
I was
like,
like, yeah, like, where do you guys, I'm like, that's what I was looking for, right,
So this is just the beginning of the discussions, to get you guys thinking about what you want to do. What are gonna be your goals for this coming budget season? Instead of doing it behind, we're trying to get ahead of it. So Lindsay has her ideas. Do you have something else you want to talk? I agree with you, Dave, but I think it's gonna be something that we grow into, and that's not gonna happen
right.
the first year right out.
I see it as an evolution. And
Yeah.
Well, my only issue with the and I don't mean any disrespect, but the slow walk is we've known about this for 4.5 years, almost 5 years. We've known about this, and we haven't done anything about it. I'm a firm believer, just rip the Band-Aid off. It's not, the town of Lyman shouldn't be in the business of keeping somebody in business. If there was 200 Lyman kids out there, totally different story. But how many Lyman kids are we talking? I'm hearing 7 families,
I think I have
5 families. So
It may vary year to year.
If you start doing the math, why are the taxpayers paying for another town? Listen, I love kids, but that's not what we're here for. There's our responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility, you know?
What I'm hearing you say is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you want to prioritize taking that entity, the park itself, management, use, all and everything that goes with it that they're doing now,
No,
and have our town do it.
I think eventually,
Right,
yes.
and that's what I'm not.
But I understand, that that will evolve. That's the evolve part. I think even if we're paying $15,000, I think those numbers need to be fixed now. And that's on their end. Why is it on the taxpayers' end? That's all I'm saying.
Well, the board certainly has an opportunity to do that.
Part of my job description is to execute contracts, but this one just being what it is, I want your guys' input on it. And so some of the key things I need to know is, do you want to renew? Yes or no? Sounds like it's kind of a yes, but that's the first question I would ask. Do you want to renew it? How long do you want the term to be? Do we want to go 1 year? Do we year to year, 3 years?
I have ideas on that.
How much do you want to budget for it? Like, do you want to, lessen that dollar amount, give them more money, less money? And another note I put in there was the field use. They've always used it for free, but kind of knowing like where we're at with what potential we could be making on the field, maybe there's some sort of agreement if they're using it, we charge them a fee or something.
Well, I don't think we should leave them. I wouldn't want to single anyone out. It's across the board. Anybody that uses it would pay. I would
Yep.
think that would
Yep.
be my way of thinking.
And that might help offset your costs with the contract as well.
We had talked about when he was here with us, I think you were here. We had concerns about the communication.
Mhm.
Right? And then we had talked about renewing, but maybe with a clause about communication. And is there a clause in to get out of it if we don't get communicated with?
Yeah.
Because we were very serious, I believe, in that conversation about making sure that happened.
Yep.
The communication would be better.
Definitely.
And we heard the same thing last year.
There is always a termination, like for breach of contract, and I did change some language in there for communication and added some stuff in the park management rules. What else did we just get?
Personally, again, net zero or a small positive, 1 year, no strings attached, just 1 year, and we relook at it next year. If Lindsay has somebody to oversee, then to me, that's where the communication can start. I think the numbers should be verified. If they make money, that's fantastic. I just believe that we shouldn't be paying any money to give our asset to anybody but the taxpaying public.
I get it. I know that at the time that we brought them on board and started doing this, there was a need for somebody to be there.
Mhm.
I remember where it came from. And so, it's all this evolution again. Evolving into.
Sorry, Madam Chair. One thing we'll have to consider is what would the cost for the town be to man the booth?
Well, I'm not talking about doing any of that yet. That's
Indeed.
that's
But,
the slow walk,
But I think-
slow walk to something like that.
Mhm.
I'm saying if we have a differential of approximately, from what I can gather, of $15,000, that $15,000 should be put right in, we have a net zero, that's it. and we move on from there. If they make 10,000, good for them. They make 50,000, good for them. But eventually we're going to reassess. And the likelihood is we are growing. We probably should take that over in years to come.
Right. As we improve and make
Yeah.
more recreationability, is that a word?
Sure.
That, I could see that, but right now, I don't know, I know you wanna rip the Band-Aid off.
No,
And I'm putting a tourniquet on this thing, so.
again, we can move past who's going to run it. If the contract says they're going to run it, they're going to run it. The only thing I can't get past is it costing the town any money.
So, since you've given it that much thought, and that's your opinion on it, do you know, how would you go about doing that? I'm curious, because this.
Right in the contract, well, we wouldn't be writing out a $41,000 worth of payments to them, one, and they wouldn't be writing us a $34,000 check at the end of the year. So that would be eliminated right there. Our fee structure would have to include whatever the incidentals are, whether it's electric, porta potties, and whatever budget that looks like. That has to be included. The field side, yes, they should pay their own, but that's a whole other, from what I can see, we're probably underwater $20,000 to $25,000 there. So if we're over $25,000, well, whoever used the field has to absorb that fee. The taxpayer should not be absorbing any of that.
Like I said, the numbers I was going off of $15 an hour, that's $13,000 just in the field use for this year. If we had charged, say, that amount. And that doesn't include the Y. The Y uses it for free. So if we charge them on top of that, we might get another 5,000. That could be 18,000.
But the other problem is who's checking it out? Who's keeping an eye on it?
Well, maybe,
Who's filling it out?
hopefully a new position.
This is
That's right.
why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, no, I do see a need, and I think that it would solve some issues. And like you said, the communication issue, that would definitely help.
It sounds like what Dave was proposing, though, was that the Y, we wouldn't pay them any money, but they would make whatever revenue they collect at that booth.
Mhm.
And maybe it would incentivize them,
Maybe.
because I think in the past we've run into where they're like, well, this one we charge this amount. And we've tried to ask them well, why are you doing that? I had learned that they charged a person $100 to bring in about 25 kids to do swim lessons for 2 weeks. $100. But we've made a fee schedule that said it's $8 per head over so many people and whatever the amount is. So we kind of lost out on a lot of revenue there. And maybe in Dave's idea, and I'm just throwing it out there, kind of spitballing, but it just sounds that might incentivize them
Mhm.
to, you would determine a fee schedule that's, fair, because we don't want to overcharge people.
Right.
But then, they pay themselves by collecting that fee.
And this is what most other towns or towns that you looked into do. And because I never even really gave it much thought as to who pays what. To when I was a kid, you go play softball. I'm not thinking about who paid for what.
Well, I think
Don't want to do that, and it is an incredible amount of money anymore just to maintain this stuff.
And that's just the ticket booth I'm talking about. I mean, I would like my full-time person to tap into field use, Pines, maybe some volleyball leagues or
Yeah.
horseshoe leagues, and kind of, because the Y has never, I don't think they've ever managed the field use. They do manage the Pines reservations. I just don't feel like and I don't blame them either. They're not responsible to market Lyman, because it's obviously money and time and resources into that. But, they call some parks and recs and they get some people in there. So I'm wondering if we had a full-time person that just kind of really buckles down on that, and then they focus on the ticket booth. We did look into the staffing of the ticket booth at one point, and it comes to about 35,000, 40,000. If you put two, I think we did $15 an hour, like minimum wage type. So it comes to about 40,000 to staff the booth. And so maybe I kind of like Dave's idea of like incentivizing it, you know? You're
Yeah, I
gonna,
mean,
so the harder you collect that money at that booth and you keep track of it, you earn it.
and then we have firm numbers.
Yeah,
Right.
No, that's
Right from get-go,
right.
we know,
And then maybe we don't have to, we can ask them to collect data. I mean, we've been asking them to collect data because we're curious.
yeah,
We don't
well,
know what's coming and going.
we should.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really our responsibility to oversee anyway.
again,
As far as-
that is a great addition with the position you're talking about. Because they can collect that data for us because they're gonna be there on a daily basis. They're gonna know what's going on. I don't know, maybe they can get copies of the ticket at the end of the day,
I think they'd have to work with Y on,
which would all have to be in the contract to sharing data.
yeah, so we'd keep that communication piece in there.
So you're looking for this position for this upcoming budget.
For FY '26, yeah. Yep. And it would be not just for Bunganut, like I need them for Kennybunk
Yeah, no,
Pond and
I
Town Point stuff too,
understand.
yeah.
Because
Town
my
Hall.
other thought was also like, for maybe an not an assistant, so that, or semi, for the road commissioner to pick up some of that stuff. But you're really thinking similarly, just in a different way.
Yeah,
So getting there is.
Yeah. Because that's where my mind was going like that. He would be the department head over
Mhm.
that person, but you're the one that gets all the phone calls and then, so the management part of it would be better for you to be overseeing that
Yeah.
person's job.
I
Because
think
of all
so.
the, okay,
I just think it's a lot.
And Tom calls all the time.
Yeah.
You know, we all keep in touch. If he can't get a hold of Lindsay, he calls me. And then when I see her, I let her know what's going on and vice versa.
Mhm.
So it's a good base operation where it just all comes together.
no, I think you guys have all found good ways to work together.
We've really,
It's, I don't know, hats
really,
off.
it really come along. So, and there's been a lot of hard work and there's some to go, so. I'm gonna segue into retention and recruitment.
Okay then.
I think that would be.
You know, before you go on to that, does anybody know what G and A stands for on their,
Sorry. He did not.
What is it?
G and A, 10%, general and account, and
Possibly. I'm not. Oh, G&A 10%.
yeah. so they-
Part of overhead?
Yeah, he didn't. I can ask him. I can ask Andy.
Yeah,
to
I'd be
clarify on
interested
that.
to know what that is. And so out of the 41,000, if this is in my mind correctly, they used, so for last year, the 38,000 went towards salaries. That came out of the 41,000. They took $200 out of the 41,000 to pay for their recreational and crafts. They took $3,456 for insurance.
Yep.
They're taking all of these out of the 41,000, is that what they're?
That's what he's showing us. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so basically,
We're
we're paying.
paying for them to run their business.
Yeah, well, I mean, liability insurance, so we're paying for liability insurance as a town on the pond, on the park, out of, separate.
Yeah, we fall under main torts and we have our own property liability.
And so then we're paying them 41,000 to run it, and they're using our money again to buy more liability insurance.
Well, they have to have specific liability because they're operating a youth camp program and there's different laws pertaining to that.
But we're paying for them to pay for liability insurance. They're taking it out of our own money. So it's like the taxpayers are paying.
It's how, I mean, we're paying them 41,000. How they allocate that is their business, really. I mean,
Did have one.
they can
Just found
allocate
it.
it however they want.
which is a better reason to have them, no checks either way. And they have to pay for the electrical and whatever the incidental billing is
That would
to
be
get us
hard
to a net zero.
to keep track of that, but. I
Break
just-
it out now.
Well, we talked about breaking out mowing, right?
Mhm.
And you really couldn't break out the mowing because the contract is for like all your facilities.
What do they, oh, they mow
Yep.
So
down
you'd
low?
have to like, what's the square footage of this and how much does it cost to mow that versus what the square
We'd
footage?
be going backwards because we used to
So-
do just that.
Yeah,
So here's the thing, and I just want to say this, if we're charging them field usage, they only mow the field. If we're charging them for field usage, just like we're charging everybody else for field usage, that should cover some of that mowing.
Some of it.
Right, but what about the down by the water? That grass down,
okay, so
somebody does,
down by the water.
where the swing sets are?
That field area down there?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do mow that when it's not wet. But so, yeah, the Y uses the mansion, everything kind of to the left, they use the amphitheater. That's what they kind of use. Everything else is public. And then you have the Pines for reservations. So the only incidentals is like the building they're using, the mansion, which is an electricity bill. It's minor.
Well, we have, garbage over there, the
And the
bins,
porta potties.
but everybody's using them.
Right.
Everybody comes in for the park, not just the
Right.
lot.
Public.
But once again, that bill shouldn't be going through the town. That bill should be paid they can get their own dumpster
Well,
account.
maybe that's what you read into the contract.
Let them deal with it. The electrical for that, I'm sure it's metered. I'm sure it's metered. That should go under their name. They should be paying that bill directly.
Well, and so if we're applying for grants as well, I think I was putting in either the contract or the park manager rules that they do not have exclusivity. If we give them exclusivity, we're gonna lose some potential grants. Some of those grants, if you section off a piece and make it like it's a public piece of land, but it's for private use,
Mhm.
the grants will not fund that. So we have to consider that as well if we're going forward.
Well, it would still be public. It's just that the public that comes through the gate, they get paid for.
Which I
Why
like
would that change?
idea. I just think we're getting into more nitty gritty stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, so,
Well, if we're gonna make up the red, the 15,000, I'll call it 15,000,
I think just if we say they get the ticket sales, right? So let's just say we pay them nothing, but they get all the ticket sales for the booth, and we charge them to use the field. Whatever fee schedule we come up with, I don't know what that is yet. And we can, we can do like nonprofit versus profit. We can have some different numbers there, but that will help, I think, a lot.
a whole lot.
Whole lot.
Oh, I'm sure, but we still have a $25,000 deficit
Well,
on the field side.
But
I
they're
mean-
not the only ones.
I agree. I agree.
13,000 just for $15 an hour for what we use the field, and that does not include the Y. If
That's
we
half the
charge the
contract.
Y to use that field, probably I would add another 5,000.
Okay.
So you're at about 18.5. So you're coming pretty close.
So we're getting there.
Yeah, and then if we had someone who's actually marketing or networking or really promoting the park, maybe we get more.
And we haven't even discussed the money that for the teams, or I guess if you do it by the hour.
I just did
That's
it by
even
the
more
hour
money,
to
yeah.
run a number. And I was trying to kind of look at
Okay.
a low ball, what's the lowest potential here?
Well, I like the idea. of the hourly just for that reason, because, you know, I think recreation is important. Kids need to move, and so
Yeah.
but the hourly rate, to me, I don't want to financially bind anyone
No,
or hurt them.
Definitely not.
But I also don't want to bind or hurt our
The taxpayer,
taxpayers.
right.
And so this is a great conversation.
Yeah, and as a parent, kids need to move, you know? Okay, football's 150, soccer's 100. You can't be at both at the same time. Good point. You know, but I'll pay the 150 just to have them move, to be involved, to get to that team, you know, because they got good work someday.
So by that, like you're saying 150, that's 10 hours of field time. Do they use 10 hours of field time in a season?
Football, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yeah.
it's been a long time since I had anything to do with any of that
I
stuff,
mean-
so.
I think it's in August, you're looking at field time is like 61 hours a week. That's how much it was being used. So we have, you know, some of these leagues currently right now, they were just giving us donations here and there, but not consistently. So technically, like between the Y and some of these leagues, they're kind of using the field for free. So it will be a shock factor to them when
Yeah.
we say, hey, it's going to be an hourly rate or whatever we decide. But again, it's like, this is what other municipalities charge. This is not, you know, we're not being, I don't feel like we're being unreasonable. If you look at some other places, they charge $35 an hour, you know, or they make you pay, you know, $500 up front just for, you know, a month's worth of using whatever. I mean, there's a whole different options you can go by, but I was just looking at like the lowest. I wouldn't want, for the same reason, I wouldn't want to just be like, bam, you're gonna pay
Mhm.
this
Right.
much money.
Because once you get something established,
Mhm.
then you can go from there.
Yeah,
If it works out, that's great. If it's not working out, and
you
well,
can change
just need
it.
to push it a little more, or, you know, it's too much, that hardly ever happens, but, you know,
How many weeks does it normally go?
Well, I was doing Chatborn and Bunganut, so I kind of combined them. We basically, it gets used from April to November between those two fields. I didn't mark them on the calendar. Let's see if I have a copy.
I mean,
Like in April, it was like 35 hours a week. In May, it went up to 43 hours a week. June, I saw 35. July, I don't think I had anything unless I might be missing a field use request form, which I wasn't sure. And then August, it picks up again, like 45 hours. Wait, is that August? Yep. September, 61 hours a week. October, 30 hours a week. So it varies throughout the season. And there's different organizations using it for different reasons. But they were using it, you know, some people request it 10A to 2P, Monday through Friday. Then some request it 5:30 to 7:30, you know, 9 to 2 on Saturday. So I just combined all of the requests and did up the hours every single week.
when we do come up with a schedule of fees, it'll be interesting to see if the requests continue that heavily, or,
Yeah, it might be a shock factor to them, but right now they're not paying anything, right?
right, no, I'm not,
Likelihood that they're gonna go to another town and that town's gonna say, oh yeah, you can use our field for free. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
those days I think have passed, you know?
yeah, I mean, I agree.
Sorry, Madam Chair. I think, Mr. Burr has a
Oh, hello,
May I ask a question?
this is a workshop, but
I understand.
is anybody mind?
No.
I didn't think so.
joint.
My question is, and I agree with Dave, if you go to a zero with this and you present the contract to them and they say, we don't have anything to do with it. We don't want to have a contract anymore. We don't want to do this. Do we have the ability to run that park ourselves at this point?
Well, even if we did, in my view, even if we didn't, how many families are we putting out? How many Lyman families are we putting out? The number seems to be anywhere from 5 to 7. I'd be more than willing to set money aside for those children to go to a camp and to pay for it. And it would save the taxpayer money if you closed it down and did that.
Well, I didn't mean, do we have the facility to run it if they don't?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet. That's the slow
Well, that-
walking that we're kind of talking about, the slow walk
Might
into
mean
that.
You possibly close the park or a portion of the park, or we have to look at different ideas.
Mhm.
But you did say that you guys had figured that roughly to have somebody there part-time would be
Was
about what we're
that
paying.
amount of money.
So anyway, so
Right,
even
yeah.
if we
Just
just
for the
hired
booth.
somebody for summer,
They won't be there. I mean, the contract is 10 hours a day, 7 days a week. I can't put someone out there 70
Yeah,
hours a
that's-
week.
yeah.
So we would have to hire more
Yeah,
personnel.
that would be more than
to help
one.
If we
fluctuate it.
staffed 2 people for those hours,
Yeah,
regardless whether it's 4 people or 12 people, I don't care. If 2 people were managing at X rate with FICA, how much would it cost?
so
And that's basically what we came up with.
Again, to make my position clear, that's not what I'm looking for next year. You know, I'm not looking to cut the legs off of the Y. But I am looking for them to
Yeah.
take on any overage
Mhm.
that the town has.
I think it's
If,
worth asking
yeah,
and just putting it out to them. Is there, that's what the board agrees. This
I
is-
thought I made it clear to Andy, right? Andy was his name?
Mhm.
Yeah. I thought I made myself clear when,
But I mean, I think it needs to just come from the board, not just.
no, I know, but I mean, what I'm saying is, I don't think this is gonna be a surprise to him because we talked about it.
Right.
I mean, I'm in agreement. I feel like just to start, it should be net zero, and we should be working from there.
Okay, so come Monday, at a meeting, we're gonna bring any of this up?
Yeah, maybe I put it on the agenda and you guys can come to a conclusion as a board. And then from there, I'll take it to Andy and say, this is what the board thinks and see what he thinks. And if he wants to continue negotiating, we'll go from there.
How about the position? Will that be talked about also?
No, well, that's gonna go into our budgeting workshops. I
it's
think
our
we'll just
budget,
kind
yeah,
of
that budget cycle. I
add
mean,
it in there, but, I didn't want to shock factor everybody. I mean, we didn't hit a COLA and retention and recruitment, and then there is the list of some other stuff.
Yep, I see the budget request.
And it sounds like from, you guys are saying, like, talking about your goals or what you kind of want to see, so I definitely heard, like, the logging efforts, town hall expansion, and stuff like, to keep moving forward with those things.
Yep,
Um,
I'd like to see that stuff happening.
So let's talk retention and recruitment. Some of you were here, some of you weren't last year. But when we start down through the budget process, I always like to say, please keep in mind, when we get to the salaries and benefits, these are people we're talking about. And it's hard out there right now. So minimum wage it's not gonna end. There's no end here. It is going to keep going up. I gave you the law. It will keep going up by CPI every single year. And we need to compete with that. All there is to it until somebody comes before the House and the Senate and says, this needs to stop. So, and yes, I've been talking to some of my friends. So I also did a list that I gave you last year, but you guys weren't here, so I updated it as well. And the first line is what minimum wage has done since 2016. The second line is what the town's total increases have been since 2018. And then the third line is what social security increases have been since 2017. And if you look at the average, you can see we're behind. We did get the reset done, so that has helped a lot. And I gave you your pay scale underneath. That's what our step scale looks like. In there, there's also, the town managers have been sharing information as to what their COLA is going to look like for next year. So I provided that to you as well. So the last 3 core positions that we've had to hire for, we didn't have anybody coming to the door with, I've got all of this experience, I've got all of this education. And we have been very, very, very lucky that we've been able to fill those positions from within. People who are interested, people who dug in, people who learned the job. So just keeping that stuff in mind. People aren't knocking down the doors on any of these towns. There was a meeting, and I gave you guys a copy of the handout. Help Wanted, turning your workplace into a talent magnet. So the more we talk in public about this and that and every other thing, people hear it, people listen. I listen to the tapes when I'm being interviewed. Couple of highlights in this: issues of today and tomorrow, increasing service demands, more people coming in, they want it now. Preparing for retirements, kind of have that going on here. Being a competitive marketplace, growing more leaders faster. This is right here. This is what we're talking about. Mitigating potential loss of knowledge. So as people leave, people are coming in and they don't have the knowledge of the person who left. Reducing talent skill gaps. Conduct steady interviews and ask only one question. Why are you leaving? Your brand is not your logo. Our brand is the town of Lyman. It's your reputation. Just some things to keep in mind. I thought this was really good. And it really brings us into today's industry. There was also, in the Main Town and City from September, several articles in here. You know, here's a guy who went from a writer to an assessor.
Oh, I read that,
You
yeah.
read that? That's cool, isn't it?
Yep.
Shortage of municipal managers. We're at a critical shortage in the state. So that's kind of where we're at. So I like to keep that in mind when we're building budgets. Everybody's having a hard time, things are tight. Talking to my husband a couple hours ago about everything. I just like to keep those things in mind while we're moving through the process. Okay? So I've also provided you, in the past years, I've written down, somebody mentions this, somebody mentions that, and it's budget time. Which I make a note, I stick it in my budget file, make it up, stick it in my budget file. And I bring it back to you guys at this point in time. Do you want to do any of these? Do you not want to do any of these? Just think about them. But these are places that we've identified. That's my spiel.
That was a good spiel.
Like that, like how I rolled that right through. Not like Lindsay. So we worked really hard to get to a good year in our management, in our workplace. And let's see.
Yes.
So we've given you a lot to think of. I like Vicky's idea. Coming up with some goals.
Well, I mean, I think it's important because there's so much, you could just get overwhelmed and have paralysis and not do anything, and then what? It's just, that's what, I mean, like you said, Dave, that we're, we've had these problems at the park for years and nobody's done anything.
Well, on a good note, I mean, the pines are starting to be cleaned. The structure of the bridge has been set.
Oh, you got that done?
All the materials were donated for the bridge and the chapel. So we're, another couple of weeks, we'll be looking good down there.
I'm sorry, has the material been delivered?
Tomorrow.
Okay. And how about the demo of the old?
The railings are out of there. We're gonna hold on to the main portion to see if we can utilize it somewhere. It's built pretty sturdy.
On the request, there's L, the budget request, is bridge at Munganut. Is
Is
this
that it?
the bridge that you guys, we
Yeah.
just voted on
Yeah.
last week, or
Yeah.
is this
No.
a different one?
No, that's the one.
It was something like Jeanette said, when somebody mentions something, she puts a note in her file. And so it's just something, I think we've had that one in our file for quite a while and we never really
We've actually made some big headway.
yeah.
We got
And
the power got fixed at the salt shed. We've got the cameras done. We made tons of headway last year. Personnel policy done.
yeah,
We really cooked it with some things last
yeah,
year.
no, and that's good. I want like to see that kind of production continue.
The only thing I don't see is anybody putting in a budget for Bugging itself.
So this isn't everything.
Okay.
This is, I think once we get into the
These are my
workshops,
notes of things I put in.
we put out to committees and departments, like I did a questionnaire for them just to kind of break the ice and just like we're doing here, it's just kind of like start the thinking thought process. So
And I
we
make
can-
copies of those, they're in folders.
we definitely don't want to like overwhelm you guys with everything. So I think when we go through the budget in sections is we'll just sort of tackle them.
Well, I was curious. I didn't know if anybody had any questions about any of this list.
Could we walk through?
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. Who wants to start? I understand the backside of the transfer station. To get to the salt shed, I always thought that was a little bit silly that we didn't have an access way to get to
That's
those.
been on the list.
We've been on there a while.
As for a town vehicle,
We
Yeah,
put
that
that
one.
around every now and then.
yeah, we've talked about that. We
Assessing
talked about
road.
that, I don't know, probably when I was on the board before, so it's been a while.
So,
Oh, it came up again a
it-
few years ago.
I'd be curious, I mean, I'm sure it would be used for multiple people, whether it be for the CEO or the director of blah, 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 the new one.
Some shared use.
I'd be curious to know what we pay in reimbursements for everyone's vehicle.
When I did it 3 years ago, I ran all those analysis because it came up again and you can't touch it.
Yeah, probably what you pay for
And With the
reimbursements.
price of vehicles today.
Yeah.
Mm,
Even if we got to use
Maintenance,
one.
upkeep.
So it kind of just went to the back burner.
Yep.
It's on the list.
The Knox boxes, is that 8 Knox boxes for Bunganut?
Yeah.
And is that approximately $1,120
Yep.
a piece?
For
No, for
all of them.
They're not that much.
Are they different than what the fire department uses?
How come? No,
The
that,
fire-
So
that
there's
is,
Knox boxes out there.
No, but we just approved at our last meeting for the fire department.
Oh, no, they're the same ones. I got that number from Matt.
Matt had asked for the Knox boxes out there because there is none right now. We did do a tour over the summer so they could actually map out Bunganet. Before, they just had an address. So if somebody was like, oh, somebody has a broken leg at the Pines, they didn't know what the Pines was. So we identified all that lingo. So now they have a map of that
Yeah.
in their geo system. But if the gates are closed, they don't have any way to get, they would have to cut our bolts basically to get into our gates. So if we do the Knox boxes, I don't think GMFR should pay for that. That's for our benefit.
No, I'm just saying that we approved for our half of it for Knox boxes, 6 of them was $7,200.
Yeah, that's to replace
So-
the ones that aren't supported anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, would
That was
the
true.
cost still be $1,200?
I could, if you want to do that project, I could definitely come down, get a final number. This is just stuff that I've thrown in my little bit.
Yeah.
So,
If that's a project you want to tackle in this next budget season, I can definitely give me a solid number map, what's gonna happen next year, do that for you.
okay.
I'm curious about how the, I was just looking at it. The, how often there are meetings at the school that a portable printer and adding a hotspot at the
Yeah,
school
that-
would make sense.
That one's not a priority for me if we do the town hall expansion, because then we would have, it's really the elections and being able to, if we have to print off absentee voter list or, I don't know, whatever, sometimes we get absentee ballots right there, but then we got to come here to log it into the CVR database. So running the elections at the school is a little bit painstaking because we're doing a lot of running back and forth. But if we do the expansion,
Will we
We'll
be
do
able to even
all the
have the big
elections.
elections here then?
oh yeah, definitely. Well, that's, I think, the idea of that meeting room. I do not like having to
Well, that's
go
what I
between
thought.
the
It's
school.
been a while since I've seen any of that
Yeah.
stuff, so I should probably get re-wound up on that.
So this is,
And this was one, again, it was brought up a couple of times, at least since I've been here, but
where's my folder? But maybe with town hall expansion, comes off the list. These are just ideas of things that people have brought up to us. If you read through it, take your time, maybe your 3 projects are sitting on this list. Maybe they're not. Maybe you guys come up with some different projects. Just kind of trying to get you to think about what do you want to do in this next budget cycle.
Lights out back of the building, is that this building?
back here,
Okay, no,
there
it's not
are
much.
lights, but it's,
Yeah,
You
there's
can't
lights
even
on the
get them in.
dog houses.
yeah.
That's it, they can't see walking around. So, again, expansion, like,
Yeah, I put that on.
We've always, for elections, we've borrowed GMFR's plug-in halogen lights, but that's where we
But that's
found
when you
out
found out.
the plugs don't work anymore. So we had to use their battery ones, which kind of stinks because they need that for emergencies. So maybe we get our own temporarily.
Does anybody remember the election when the bear baiting question came?
oh, yeah.
And it was a gubernatorial election too, and we held that here.
You didn't,
And- No, we did, and
oh my goodness.
we had people monitoring and parking and
3
helping people get in and out.
3 hours in my town.
I was
Sure,
here,
that
and
was-
one of the lights on the doghouse, it was this time of the year, when it's dark early, blew out.
Yep.
And I had to change the light, I was out there on a ladder changing the light bulb so people could see.
Yeah, it's
the water.
dark. It's dark out there, even with the lights you have now.
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was, the line was out the door to the,
Well, I can't even imagine, my town, I was there 3 hours in the snake loop. Just trying to get to the helicopter.
anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off down the rabbit hole. Anybody have anything else they want to discuss on that one?
This is like-
ORC's gonna need money.
That'll come up.
Yeah, we've got input request. So it's just a workshop to get you guys thinking. what do you want to do? So we're not scrambling at the last minute trying to put together numbers, trying to get people to give us numbers, those kind of things, so.
It just seems in terms of priorities, the issue of land use and also town hall expansion stand out right now.
And those things are being worked on. They're gonna be
Mhm.
slow moving.
Mhm.
You know, I think we got a good handle on it right now. Until I have, especially with town hall expansion, until I have a little bit more information.
Okay, but it's good to know.
I mean, the land study, it really, I think, where we left it, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were doing like the forestry thing, because we want to get the most bang for our buck.
Mhm.
And then kind of, Dave's been working on the land study, so I know he's identifying potential parcels. He's got a lot identified already. So it would just be, if you guys want him to continue working on that, I'm sure he's working on it.
Did you have in mind an occasional update as to this parcel, this parcel, this parcel?
As soon as,
Potential-
yep, but right now we're in, until they're harvested.
Right.
We can go, we can have a field trip, we can look
Nice.
and we can discuss, I mean, first we'll look at what the chief looked at
Mhm,
for
right.
satellites. We can, we can engage with the school. We can see what kind of criteria we need for maybe a future school or whatever the wish list might be. We can do it, but until it gets harvested, until you can walk out there, see what kind of materials there, see how wet it is, you're kind of just saying, well, this would look good here. But, what you didn't see was the 30 acres of wetland in the back,
Okay.
So until it's harvested, I think that's when the list will really come out.
Would that be applicable to all of the town properties or just those that could be harvested?
Well, no, I'm hoping that that anything that can be harvested
Right.
get harvested, because it's also forest management.
Mhm.
I mean, we're not just raping the land.
No, it's best
So,
case practice. isn't
yeah.
it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So do you brainstorm?
Mine does.
Awesome. I knew.
Mine does.
I need to know and add it to the list, Amber's food waste diversion program, even though I know you're not, it probably won't cost any money, but
Well, that's
I
the
know
hope.
you
It's
and
a
Mandy
goal.
have been
It's a
talking,
goal.
and
Yes.
he's been getting back to me on that, so.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I have
it's
a little
kind of waiting for
folder
that
with
number to come in.
some things. My hope would be that we can do it all with grant money.
Mhm.
I know that there is like, I think it was a 25% match for the grant, and I can look, but that can be taken out like volunteer hour, like you can barter and so,
So it's in kind, basically.
yes.
Yeah.
So I have some ideas about that too, so.
I mean, I consider that like a goal to work towards.
Yeah.
People were interested in
January 13th,
Yeah.
roundtable discussion.
That's right.
So Amber, what would be the source of it?
It's the state of Maine. They have a waste diversion
Great.
grant. 2 opportunities, one in February and one in August. So,
you see any surprises coming down the road, like from the county or, I would encourage everyone to go to that meeting in Alfred with the superintendent talk budget that's coming up. Because, we used to have those regularly when I was on the board before and they were really good to have because there was no big surprises. And we had developed a relationship with,
I believe it's December 10th.
because it's right around the same time as that.
yes, because,
But and Amber asked the question, I think, they don't typically send information beforehand. At least they didn't last time, but I can reach out to them and ask if they have a packet.
Might be the 11th, because the 10th is the EPR.
Yes, I got
Okay.
those two dates mixed
Yeah,
up.
so it might
Remember
be
that
the
last
11th.
meeting, so
I think it was a Wednesday, because it was like at a weird, it was like
Okay.
in the middle of the day.
It's
and
3
that was-
o'clock in the afternoon.
And so I was like, oh, I won't be able to go to that, because my hours that day, but, so,
But it's very, very informational. You get to know the superintendents,
Well, and I'll
And-
say,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, but they pass out, they used to,
Mhm.
formally, when we did this before, we'd get the information there.
And I think, and so first time I did a RSU 57 budget meeting, which is usually, I want to say in May is when they schedule it. I think we had a whopping 8 Lyman residents show up to vote on it. So if Lyman residents should definitely go to that. It's like an open town meeting forum, so it's like you got your one shot to go, and I know it's hard for some people, but it's amazing, like, in all towns, like Alfred had, 6 people, and yeah, each municipality in that district, like, there's only a handful of people that show up.
I'm guilty, I haven't been
Yeah.
to one of those in probably 13 years.
Yeah. And then when they vote on it in June, because then it goes on the ballot, they're like, why? No one understands what they're voting on. I'm like, well, you should have gone to the town meeting in May or
I used
reached
to
out to the
appreciate
state.
when the towns would show up when I was after school, because I see us as a partner, not, not as enemies or somebody's vying for all the same thing, but I always saw us as partners, and, it used to be, the towns would be like, the schools would be like, pay on time, but I might have a different bond schedule than the school. Let me see if I can work some numbers and call you back, yeah, okay, I can wait, a week before I have to make payroll or something like that. We're partners. So I always appreciated it when you guys showed up.
Well,
Just
Good way to look at
another
it.
thought,
Just
just another thought process to
The mindset seems to be adversarial because
Yeah.
of the money.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I like these meetings. And I was glad to see that email about sitting with the superintendent, because it took a lot of that away.
one other thing I know, and I had talked to you before about it, Jeanette, kind of trying to figure out, like, who in the town has a cell phone and who has a plan. Like, I know looking through the budget sheet, some of them are like, okay, we have this here and that's for a phone, and we have this over here and that's for a phone, and then,
So for cell phones, it's broken out recently, and the most that we pay is $60 a month. Most of them are $24, $25 a month. There is a town manager phone, a CEO phone, a transfer station phone, a road commissioner phone, and a GA phone.
so there's 5 phones,
5 phones.
but they're all at different places. Like, are they all, don't we have a phone?
Cell phones, there's only 5.
No, I'm talking about plans, like, this phone is at this company with this plan.
For a
and-
cell phone?
Yeah.
No, they're all through, we jumped on before I got here. Lisa had jumped on with the fire department, and we got the fire department's rates, and that was through Verizon. No, we don't have, it's all through one plan.
Okay,
The-
I'll watch for that, because I know
Yeah,
I,
the phones itself.
yeah, not the phones
themselves
itself,
Are
like,
different,
the
they're
plan.
different.
with everybody on one plan.
Yeah, everybody's on one plan for the cell phones. There's 5 phones, it's Verizon. It ranges from 24, because some of those phones, we've had that one, $24 a month to $60 a month. The regular phones, GWI is here. There's another vendor out at the transfer station. Can't remember right now. There's a different vendor out at Bunganut. So those phones are in different places.
Okay. I'll look next. I know I had asked you before about it, and I thought they were cell phones, but,
No, we have them on.
okay.
Anybody else have any?
I just, I know I said it by email, but I want to thank Joe and Karen for their work on the grants for Bugging It. That was,
I was
Good
just
work.
gonna mention that.
thank you very much.
Cool, yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations, you guys deserve a round of applause for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we around.
Yeah.
Were you ever in Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts?
So Linda, you're gonna reach out to Andy and,
Well, no, it'll be on the agenda
okay,
so that the board,
Yeah.
you can make an official decision. I mean, in workshops, you don't typically
Yeah.
decide anything.
Yeah.
And
So what
then
it-
from there, I'll just reach out to Andy and say, this is what you guys are willing to negotiate and see what he wants to do after that point. I mean, it's kind of a negotiating.
Yeah.
It's gonna go
Okay.
back and forth a little bit.
okay. So can I just email you with some of my thoughts on some of these things instead of
If you'd like to, yeah.
Okay, no, I'm just, if they're, like, I would like to see dates added to like, for a walkthrough. For like opening and closing. I know you had put that in, I think you had added that to the park management.
I mean, I guess my thought process, if we're, I want them to be accountable for communication. I just feel like if you put in a date and I'm sick or that person's sick and then you don't comply with the date. But I did in the park rules kind of outline like, at least so many check-ins before you open and then check-ins, I don't remember what I put daily while you're open and then, so I tried to.
2 or 3 check-ins.
Yeah.
I
And
just-
then my other thing was, there were a couple where it's a reasonable time frame. I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving it like that.
A reasonable timeframe for what?
For like, I think that was for, um,
Was it like reporting stuff?
That can be worked, no matter what, a reasonable timeframe with
Yeah.
not to exceed X.
Yeah, I think what we consider reasonable and what they consider reasonable are
Right.
Okay.
two different
define-
time frames, I know there's been times where you've emailed and it's been, nothing for
Okay.
months.
So we could say, within like 48 hours, I think is more than enough.
Yeah, I think
Unless
that's,
an emergency or something.
It's reasonable.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, you can email me or.
okay.
We have a plan to review this stuff some more, and we have a meeting in a week,
Next Monday.
Next Monday.
Monday, so.
And then also next Monday, we probably should start scheduling out your workshops for budgeting. You don't have to do it tonight. Figure out where you guys want to land on that.
Sounds good.
These guys can do
Well, I do say it is nice that we're meeting for the first time to talk budget in November. I don't think that has happened since I started on budget committee, so
Yeah.
it's nice to,
Remember those couple of years
Yeah, they-
that ran really late?
yeah.
That wasn't good. But, no, it's good. I have a meeting first Thursday, so it won't be till after the next meeting. But I will press the fire department a little bit and see what they're thinking budget wise, any surprises there.
We good?
I think so. No motion.
No motion?
No motion, please.
No decisions.
Just move.
Yeah, I think we're done. We're done here.
Thank you.
Thank you.